Now, I'm calling to order the special hybrid meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the West Hartford Center Special Services District, 7 p.m. This meeting will be available on West Hartford Community Interactive, Comcast Channel 5, and Frontier Channel 6098, YouTube, as well as www.whctv.com. So we are calling this meeting to order, and we'll start with a roll call. Hi.
Ms. Blanks.
Here.
Mr. Davidoff.
Here.
Ms. Fay.
Here.
Mr. Gold.
Here.
Ms. Kerrigan.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney.
Here.
Mr. Wennegrab.
Here.
And Mr. Williams.
Here.
And we have Mr. Carlson on the phone.
Here.
And we have Ms. Rivkin. And Mr. Morpurgo. Mr. Morpurgo is here. Thank you.
He is. Thank you so much. All right. We will, if there's no objection, we will adopt a motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 9th, 2021, and public hearing minutes of March 23rd, 2021. Is there any objection? Hearing and seeing no objection, the motion is adopted and the minutes are approved. The only item we have is the resolution to adopt proposed budget for fiscal year 2021 and 2022 as proposed by the district manager in accordance with the requirements of West Hartford Code of Ordinances 161-28. Again, this was the subject of a public hearing on March 23rd. So I just would like a very quick summary from Mr. Hart, if that's okay, and then we will see if there's any questions, and we will do our vote. Thank you, Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mayor, Madam Chair, Matt Hart, Town Manager, District Manager. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming to tonight's meeting. So the resolution before you concerns two funds, the Special Services District Fund as well as the Blueback Square Fund. And actually, I would like to start with a brief overview of the Special Services District Fund. And you should have received those materials. And for those who may be watching online tonight, I am now looking at pages 16.9 and 16.10 of the budget book. So starting off with the Special Services District Fund, that fund was created. It was created by the Town Council many years ago to provide, it's responsible for a few key duties related to the Blueback Square project. Number one, collecting the Special Services District tax, and then secondly, operating the parking garages and the surface lots within Blueback Square. Now the district itself contracts with the town's parking services to handle that function, and does pay a management fee to our parking lot fund when there are sufficient proceeds available. We're not recommending that for this fiscal year, and I will explain why in a moment. So now if we could look at the numbers, and I am on page 16.9, what we are proposing for next fiscal year is a budget for this fund of approximately $3.6 million. Looking at the revenues, the two most important components are number one, the district tax of approximately $1.7 million, and then secondly, parking revenue of a little under $1.9 million, what we are budgeting for next year. Those are the two main revenues in this fund. What are the uses? The only use we are recommending for next year is a transfer out of approximately $3.6 million that will be used to pay debt service on the bonds related to the Blueback Square project. So that is the Special Services District Fund. I'm now going to turn to the Blueback Square Fund, which is on pages 16.7 and 16.8 of the proposed budget. And the Blueback Square Fund was created by the council to take care of a couple key things related to the Blueback Square project. Number one, to handle the capital financing on the bonds that were issued for the project. There was a little under 49 million in total in general obligation bonds that were issued several years ago now. And this fund is also responsible for making a contribution to parking operations when funds are available. Looking at the numbers on page 16.7, the proposed budget for next fiscal year totals approximately $3.6 million. On the rental side, on the revenue side, you see the transfer in coming from the Special Services District fund budget that I just discussed a few minutes ago of approximately $3.6 million. And the only expenditure that we are recommending for next fiscal year would be a contribution towards capital financing, the Blueback Square bonds of $3.6 million, $3.7 million. We are not recommending a contribution to the parking lot fund for next fiscal year because parking revenues were down pretty significantly at times during the pandemic, but are starting to recover now. So those are the highlights I wanted to provide. Madam Chair, happy to take any questions that board members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. I appreciate that. Any questions for the town manager? District manager, sorry. All right. Seeing none, then this budget has not changed since you presented it again in on March 9th, and the public hearing, and we received no comments. So this appears to be very straightforward. So with that, we will make a motion to adopt, and we will need a roll call. Ms. LeBreau. Oh, sorry. Point of order, Mr. Gold.
Just there are people on the phone that might have a comment.
Right. I don't think so. I paused. But is there anyone on the phone that has a comment?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And they're pretty clear and know how to unmute. So all good, right? Okay, thank you so much. And we will go to roll call. This is the resolution to adopt proposed budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 as proposed by the district manager in accordance with the requirements of West Hartford Code of Ordinances. That's the motion on the table, 161-28. So roll call, Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Blanks?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff?
Yes.
Ms. Fay?
Yes.
Mr. Gold?
Yes.
Ms. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Winograd?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Rivkin?
Yes.
And Mr. Morpurgo? And Ms. Cantor,
Yes.
last but not least.
Okay. Thank you so much. Motion passes unanimously. Staff reports. Mr. Hart, do you have any report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I would defer to my colleague, Ms. Rivkin, to talk about some exciting developments at Blueback Square.
Excellent. Ms. Rifkin, you're up. You're up.
There you go. Thank you. So you all may have heard the news that...
Can you hear on the phone?
Yes? No. Okay.
You can pull the mic.
Pull it. Okay. Ops is very good.
We're just adjusting the mic, so make sure. And if you can't hear, please let us know.
Good? Yes? Okay. You may have all heard the exciting news that after some time on the market, Blueback Square was acquired on Friday afternoon in a partnership by Rialto Financial and, most importantly, Charter Realty and Development Corporation. It's really very exciting news. We love that Charter is a locally based company out of, and I say local, in Connecticut, which is very exciting for us, based out of Greenwich and Westport. But exciting for us because we have somebody in Connecticut who knows Connecticut, who's very familiar with the area, has a number of other properties that they manage and own in the area. So very exciting for us, and lease, of course. So they come to us. We're excited. I know everybody that we've talked to is, but we see great things happening. They've already hit the ground running, so anybody involved knows that we're everybody's all in and ready for action. So with that being said, I don't know what else to say about that, but really, like I said, a long time coming and very exciting, and we couldn't be more excited and delighted with the actual ownership. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And management.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rifkin. Is there anybody else on the phone that would like to comment on this? Mr. Carlson, I didn't know if you wanted to, or, no. Okay, and,
We're just excited as a team to join Charter and look forward to great things with Blue Bay.
excellent. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions for Ms. Rifkin or Ms. Blanks?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Ms. Rifkin, since I can't really say I'm new, but I'm fairly new, so I'm just curious, when you said the owners are from Connecticut, may I ask where were the former owners from?
Yes, the former ownership was based out of Chicago. So it was a big difference, obviously, regionally, and understanding the market, understanding local, like what's happening locally. So, yeah.
Thank you. So that is exciting then.
Yes, yes. And again, with our wonderful partnership here and our wonderful relations here, that everybody is already, not everybody, but many have been involved already. So that's a big change just to start with. So we love that.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Blanks. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Hart, anything further from you?
Matt Hart, District Manager. I would just echo Ms. Rifkin's comments. I have some previous experience working with Charter. The mayor and I have gotten to spend a little time with them too as they were weighing this acquisition. And they really understand the marketplace very well. I think they have a good handle on trends and best practices, not only in Connecticut, but Northeast and around the country. So looking forward to doing good things there. The infrastructure is looking good. I don't know if you've had a chance to get out and about in Blueback. Appreciate the plantings and the cleanup work there. Outdoor dining, those barriers have been installed. At least one restaurant is taking advantage of that now. Actually closer to 3 or 4. And then the mural project, the MLK mural, began work on that through community painting this past weekend, and looking forward to Corey Payne's work as we approach Juneteenth. So a lot of good things happening.
Thank you, Mr. Hart, and I would just like to echo the enthusiasm and I think the commitment to the project and the vision of the project, which I'm sure we will all learn about in the not-too-distant future, is very exciting and I think well aligned with what the town, the vibrancy and the the improvements and just having it be just really a top destination for the region is very, again, very exciting with real commitment and coming out of it's a good time to have new leadership. Yes, Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just those who've been through this with me before won't be surprised at my comment on infrastructure, that the dog water fountain is not in operation right now. It looks like it needs repainting again and to be turned on, and I would appreciate if that can get done. I went by there the other day and my dog was very disappointed. So, and I do think it's, especially as we get people coming in for the mural, it actually is a nice amenity.
Good point. Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Anything else? All right. So with that, I can make a motion that we adjourn. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, we are saying our last congratulations, and we look forward to some really exciting things, and we are adjourned. Thank you. And we will start our town council meeting at 7:30. I am calling the Tuesday, May 25th, regular hybrid West Hartford Town Council meeting to order. I am Mayor Sherry Cantor, and I want to welcome you to tonight's hybrid meeting of the Town Council. Tonight's meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format in accordance with the Governor's executive orders. This means that members of the Town Council and staff have the option of participating virtually, and some of us have chosen to call in this evening. Members of the Council who are participating virtually will have all of the same rights and privileges as members who are physically present. Members of the public have the option to view the meeting virtually on WHCI Comcast Channel 5, Frontier Channel 6098, or YouTube. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Blanks.
Present?
Ms. Cantor.
Here.
Mr. Davidoff.
Here.
Ms. Fay.
Present.
Mr. Gold.
Here.
Ms. Kerrigan.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney.
Here.
Mr. Winograd. And Mr. Williams. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. LeBreau. I'm going to start with a few items, point of privilege. We lost one of our own last night. A real fighter, someone who adored life and fought so hard to be with his family. This is the passing. I want to mark the passing of West Hartford Police Sergeant Christopher Tyler. He lost a very, very courageous battle with cancer last night. He was a valued member of our family since August of 2010, and he will be deeply missed. He was hired on August 15th, 2010, and served as a police officer until his promotion to sergeant in December of 2017. During his tenure, he served in the following assignments: Patrol Division, Community Interaction Team, Emergency Services Unit, Field Training Officer, Investigative Services Sergeant, and Administrative Services Sergeant. Sergeant Taylor was the recipient of 14 department, merit, and unit citations for his excellent work, as well as countless letters from citizens thanking him for his good deeds. He was 33 years old. He was a 2006 graduate from Rocky Hill. He was all-state indoor track and football. He graduated cum laude and from Stony Brook in New York, and I just want to share our heavy hearts and our thanks for his years of service. And with that, I'm going to just ask us all to have a moment of silence. Thank you very much, and I know that all of you who supported Chris during his illness and his family, I'm sure they're going to need continued support, and we will be there for them. Thank you. Okay, I had a couple other, actually. I also want to recognize, sometimes we take for granted our first responders and what they face, and I want to recognize the New Haven firefighter Ricardo Torres, who died responding to a house fire on May 12th, where two people were rescued, and he left behind a beautiful family, and we are all thinking about him. He had tremendous support around him. The fire department, not only in New Haven, but all around the state, really came to rally for him. And also, I don't know if you saw, but Lieutenant Rankins also was released from the hospital on Sunday after suffering critical injuries from the fire. So this was a very powerful fire, fast-moving fire, and again, people that run towards danger, and we have them in our thoughts and prayers and our thanks. Our heartfelt thanks. I also want to recognize the passing of Betty Basil. I knew Betty as a Rotarian. I met her. She was 92 years old. She was the first woman president of the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce and the director of numerous community organizations, and many of them the first woman as well. She contributed so much to our community, and she was really such a wonderful example of a woman with grace. And she has a lot of family still in West Hartford, and I just want them to know we're thinking about them, and we extend our sympathies to her family and I want to share my gratitude for having known her. I'm a better person for that. And I also want to say this year marks the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder under the knee of Derek Chauvin's under the knee of Derek Chauvin and on George Floyd's neck. It's almost to the hour. I think it was almost to the, we're marking it almost to the hour. The video that then 17-year-old Darnella Frazier took led to international outrage and led to some of the largest protest marches in U.S. history. This video shook people all around the country and the world. It gave people an honest account and allowed the country to witness this cruelty and injustice and that exists in our nation. Seeing all of this firsthand made a difference, and now a year later, the work continues to educate, to listen, to learn how we can be better, to fight racism, and to be an active anti-racist, to fight hate, to address systemic inequalities around race and racism. And I just want to also say we condemn all hateful acts. And unfortunately, many ethnic groups suffer from attacks. And right now, many Jewish communities are experiencing hateful attacks, and they are condemned. And no hateful, racist attacks should ever be witnessed and experienced in our country. All right, and with that, now I make a motion, without objection, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to issue a proclamation regarding National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Is there any objection? Seeing and hearing no objection, I'd like to read the following proclamation. And I want to give a thank you to Sarah Raskin, who is the point person who actually reminds us about this very important day, and actually was instrumental in getting this proclamation together. Whereas since 2009, there have been 251 mass shootings in the United States, resulting in 1,426 people shot and killed, and 958 people shot and wounded, whereas every day more than 100 Americans are killed by gun violence, alongside more than 230 who are shot and wounded, and on average there are more than 13,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas gun violence prevention is as important as the COVID-19 pandemic, and it continues to aggravate gun violence after more than a year of increased gun sales, increased calls to suicide and domestic violence hotlines, and an increase in gun violence. And whereas beyond the loss of life and the pain and suffering of survivors, there are countless and thousands of family members and friends whose lives are forever scarred. Whereas to honor and remember all of the victims and survivors of gun violence and support efforts to prevent gun violence, June 4th was designated as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and commit to doing all we can to ensure those who seek to harm others or themselves do not have access to firearms, and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. Now therefore be it proclaimed that on behalf of the Town Council and the residents of West Hartford, I, Mayor Sherry G. Cantor, do hereby recognize June 4th, 2021 as Gun Violence Awareness Day in the town of West Hartford. I know this is being shared in June, on June 4th as well, but this is our last meeting before this date. So thank you for that, and again, thank you to Sarah, and I hope the work continues very, very strong on this. It's needed now more than ever. All right. Number 2, as the items on the agenda have been subject to 2 public hearings, there will be no public forum this evening. On the consent calendar, there are no items on the consent calendar. And number 4, Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Without objection, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the May 11th, 2021 Town Council meeting.
Is there any objection? Seeing and hearing no objection, the minutes are approved. Now we go to Town Manager Report. Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending tonight's council meeting. I just have two items for my report this evening. I also wanted to touch on the passing of Sergeant Christopher Tyler. Thank you, Mayor, for your kind remarks. Sergeant Tyler was in the midst of really an exceptional career here with us. The Mayor talked about how he had moved up the ranks, starting in 2010 and being promoted to sergeant in late 2017. He showed extraordinary courage, as did the members of his family, in battling the tumor and the cancer that eventually took him. But he was very inspirational in many ways. I know he's going to be missed, certainly, by his colleagues at the police department, but also throughout the larger organization. And I really think they want to honor his memory and his legacy, because that's what he would have wanted. He was very, very optimistic throughout. As I said, showed just tremendous courage. Our hearts are certainly with his family and his friends and with his colleagues at the police department. I know that we're going to support them in the weeks and months ahead. And when we learn more about service arrangements, funeral arrangements, we will certainly inform the council. But thank you again, Mayor, for your kind remarks, and our most sincere condolences to his family and his colleagues.
Thank you.
The second item I wanted to touch on, Mayor, and this is more positive news, certainly, and hopefully you all have received an invitation. I'll make sure that we send it out again tomorrow. Kristen Gorski, our own Economic Development Coordinator, this Thursday, the 27th, from 12 noon to roughly 1:30 p.m., will be providing her annual economic update to the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce, and want to thank the Chamber for sponsoring this important event, and it will be virtual this year. So Ms. Gorski will be providing her presentation via Zoom. So hopefully many of you can check that out. If you're not able to see it live, be able to view the recording. So I want to thank Kristen, Ms. Gorski, for all of her hard work supporting our business community, the great partnership we have with the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm really looking forward to Thursday's event. That completes my report, Mayor. Happy to take any questions council members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. I am looking forward to hearing Kristen's program. Any questions for the town manager? On the phone? I hear nothing. Okay, so, all right, we will go to Corporation Counsel. Mr. Dodge, any?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Since we last met, the governor extended the state of emergency through July 20th. Along with that, he also extended a number of the executive orders that state government has been operating under. Included among those is Executive Order 9H, which has allowed us to conduct these meetings in a virtual format. That executive order will expire on June 30th, and so we expect that all boards and commissions, as well as the council, and all meetings will be held in a live, in-person format after June 30th. I have no other report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. Any questions for Corporation Counsel? Here or on the phone? Okay, very good. Then we will go to items unfinished business. Mr. Davidoff. Sorry, there is no unfinished. That's what I meant. I meant to say our new business. So go ahead, Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As past practice, I would like to move that we discuss and adopt items 7A, 7D, and 7E as a whole, and then we will vote on each by roll call separately. Is there an objection? There being none, I will open the discussion for items 7A, 7D, and 7E.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. So actually, I think I was supposed to read that, but that's okay. But it doesn't matter. This is traditional that we discuss those items together, and we will also be discussing the capital items together as well and vote separately. So with that, I thought I'd turn to Mr. Hart to do a very quick summary of the budget and where we are now. We did not think we needed a full presentation because this has been done a number of times, but a very quick summary, and then we will open it up for the floor for comments.
Thank you, Mayor. So council will recall that I presented a proposed budget for your consideration in early March. On March 9th, it was a budget coming from me, our leadership team, as well as the superintendent of schools. And at that session, we talked about, the experiences, the once probably in a century experiences, we hope, right, that we went through this past year, and how we came together as a community and as an organization. And we also talked about the budget, how the budget serves as a very important tool for our recovery from the pandemic. We talked about how our town, West Hartford, that we're consistently recognized as one of the nation's premier communities, and that our municipal programs and the services that we provide really are essential to our quality of life. And yes, we are recognized as one of the nation's premier communities, but we don't want to rest on our laurels, correct? We want to continue to improve and provide a great quality of life to our residents and our taxpayers. So the services we provide in education, public health, public safety, public works and facilities, our library, leisure and social services, they're all so critical to what helps make West Hartford the community it is today. And similarly, the capital improvement program that is before you tonight also enables us to make very strategic investments in our most critical infrastructure. And as you know, we've got a pretty vast portfolio of buildings and parks and fields and bridges and roads and sidewalks and stormwater infrastructure. So it's so important to invest in that infrastructure in order to maintain it in a responsible way. So the superintendent of schools and I had presented a responsible budget back in early March with an expenditure increase of 2.79% and a proposed tax increase of 3.25%. The tax increase was driven in part by the necessary use of fund balance in the current year. We knew that could be considered as too high, and that the council and the Board of Ed would need some time to work it through and make its own adjustments. We also recommended that once the American Rescue Plan Act was announced, a watershed act for our nation, recommended that you wait until we receive the rules regarding the use of those monies, and the governor allowed municipalities to extend their local budget process. So you accepted that recommendation and extended our local budget process so that we could make a judicious use of those rescue plan dollars for next fiscal year. So what's in front of the council this evening, these are a series of adjustments on the revenue side and the expenditure side that the council has carefully considered. First, on the revenue side, what is before you are approximately $4.5 million in additional non-tax revenues. Roughly $366,000 coming in additional state funds and approximately $4.1 million in American Rescue Plan monies. Now, we think we've talked about the pros and cons of incorporating rescue plan funds in the operating budget. You know, we certainly think it's appropriate to use some. We believe that this amount is appropriate, but we would caution against increasing that amount for use in fiscal year 2022. You know, you may want to consider using some in fiscal year 23 and perhaps even in fiscal year 24. So what's before you tonight are proposed revenue changes of approximately $4.5 million. On the expenditure side, the council is looking to make adjustments that would lower expenditures from what I had proposed by approximately $178,000. Roughly $750,000 of that coming from the Board of Education, the adjustments that the board has made, and then the council is considering restoring and adding a few key positions that we think are important to our recovery and that would also help promote very important policy goals for the town council, such as our work on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So those, taking the proposed revenue changes and the expenditure changes into account, that would lower the proposed budget that I submitted. What the council is considering is a total general fund budget of approximately $308.4 million, approximately $117.2 million for town services, approximately $175.6 million for the school district, and approximately $15.6 million for capital financing. Expenditures would decrease somewhat from what I had proposed, from 2.79% to 2.73%. And the tax increase would fall from 3.25% to 1.48%. And that would be a 1.48 tax increase over 2 years because the town council did not raise the mill rate for the current fiscal year. In summary, I think that this is a very responsible budget that you are considering, makes judicious use of a portion of the rescue plan funds, the roughly $25 million that have been awarded to the town. The Board of Education is looking at another $10 million. The council will have ample opportunity to decide on the use of the remainder of those monies. I would like to thank everyone who's been involved in the process thus far. The staff, our leadership team, our very talented budget team out there in the audience, led by Mr. Privatera, Ms. Newton, and Ms. Lewis. I'd like to thank my colleagues at the school district, the members of the Board of Education for their hard work, and last but certainly not least, the town council for your leadership and the countless hours you have put into reviewing our submission and considering these proposed amendments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. That was a good review and a good summary of where we are. And I also am very appreciative of everybody's input into the process. All right, I will go to our chair of the Finance Committee first and start with Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it. As chair of the Finance and Administration Committee, it's an honor to serve in that capacity, to present to the residents of West Hartford a fiscally responsible municipal budget for the upcoming year. This council has focused on finding efficiencies while at the same time providing the services which our residents expect and deserve. I want to start this evening by thanking the various people who have gotten us to this point in the process. This process started, from my perspective, in early January, having initial discussions with the town manager as to where we would like to be come this evening. And it should come as no surprise to anyone that we've been guided with sound financial management, and the committee has relied quite heavily on their expertise in the area of public finance and what we can and cannot do. I'd like to thank the town manager, Mr. Hart, his assistant Urida Reimheimer, for providing all the information to us in a very timely manner, answering any and all inquiries of the various members of the council, and providing transparent responses to those inquiries. Of course, we need to thank our finance team under the direction of Finance Director Peter Privatera, with Lisa Newton and Patty Lewis, Angela Ludiciani and Cara Huffner. Hope I didn't screw up anybody's name. The role that you provide is integral to getting us here this evening. You look at spreadsheets for months to make certain that the numbers are in the right columns and that they make sense. And it's a lot of work in a binder that has hundreds of pages to make certain everything in the end balances out. The past year, in my opinion, posed a significant strain on our health department. But under the leadership of Amy Kraus, recently appointed in that role, West Hartford was well positioned to deal with all of the challenges that this global pandemic has thrown to us. And people ask, why do you enjoy serving on the council? And one of the reasons is you get to work with people of the caliber of Ms. Kraus to do what the science tells us to do and to provide the guidance necessary for our community to be safe. And it's worth every dollar that we invested with respect to public health. And I think prior to this last year, I don't think people really understood what careers in public health were all about, but I'm certain there will be a lot of people entering that field in the near future to make a contribution to our society. As Mr. Hart alluded to, this budget comes to us because prior to his presenting, many town directors and employees had input as to what the priorities were for the various services and programs provided to our residents. The people who work on the front lines know the programs better than us as committee members will ever know, and can always find the best way to do that, can seek grants or other funding opportunities to offset some of the expenditures. While we may be a board of 9, there is also a board of 7 in the Board of Education elected by the residents of West Hartford, who are responsible for funding the education of our school system, and under the direction of the superintendent and all of his assistants, teachers, staff. They are tasked with providing the students of West Hartford with an A+ education, and there is no doubt in my mind that every student who attends the West Hartford Public Schools receives that type of education. And we leave no child behind, and as the superintendent often says, we clear the path to make everything possible. And this budget allows that promise to our community to continue. To my left is our amazing town clerk, who had many challenges this past year with respect to an election that had to be done in a very different manner, and in conjunction with the registrar of voters, was done very successfully with a large turnout, which should be no surprise to anybody, because we have a very engaged electorate who knows that voting is an important way to voice your concerns. And the activity in the town clerk's office has not stopped, as one can just look at any type of real estate page online. The amount of homes that are for sale and contingent within 24 hours is just amazing, and is evidenced by the record number of land recordings and conveyance fees being received by the town. I would be remiss if I did not thank our Corporation Counsel Office under the leadership of Dallas Dodge, Gina Verano, and Cynthia Latour to provide us with amazing legal guidance under these extraordinary, unprecedented times. The amount that we pay Mr. Dodge in the role of Corporation Counsel is not enough, in my opinion, as an attorney, to do all the work that he has done, and did it in a top-notch manner, because the rules changed, and they changed with every executive order, and constant contact with our mayor and with town staff to keep us abreast as to what's happening. And it just doesn't happen by accident. You just need to have the right people in place to implement the things that are necessary to be done. And as I said when Mr. Dodge was sitting here, he impressed me as a town councilor, and I hold him in higher regard now for his efforts and for his advice and good counsel through this global pandemic. Where would we be without our media partners and WHCI? Their ability to broadcast what was happening in our community, all these various meetings, was a totally new thing for them to undertake, and it was done seamlessly. And Jen Evans and her staff are amazing people for our community, always have been, and demonstrated through this pandemic why we have probably the best community television network in the state of Connecticut. I'd like to thank my counselors who I serve with for attending many meetings and talking about a wide variety of issues as we went through each of these budgets. It's important to have that dialogue during the review process so that we can get a better understanding as to what we each believe to be the community's priorities. And I think the exchange of ideas makes for a stronger budget. And the last person that I'd like to thank is Mayor Sherry Cantor. There has been, in my opinion, no public servant in the state of Connecticut who volunteers their time more than our mayor. And this was quite evident this was before the pandemic, but during this pandemic, I witnessed firsthand a leader who was engaged, involved, who dedicated the entire time from first thing in the morning to late at evening, putting the best interest of the town of West Hartford first, without expectation of any recognition. And Madam Mayor, tonight I would like to publicly recognize you for all of your dedication and hard work. And in my opinion, getting to this point this evening and having the success that we're going to have with the adoption of this budget is in large part due to all your efforts. So now that I've gotten all the thank yous through, and we probably won't hear from the rest of the people because we're pretty much on base that one person was going to handle all that, let's talk about the year that just was. It was a global pandemic. PPE, people probably never even heard that term. Face coverings, face masks, social and physical distancing, wash your hands, constantly be reminded to do that. Why? Because this thing was deadly. It was real. It's not fake. People died. People I know passed away. People I know who got very sick. I know people who recovered. It's still very real. And, but we met that challenge head on because we had the right resources in place. This pandemic brought a lot of employment loss, business loss. We saw for the first time hunger and food insecurity in communities such as ours. The need at our food pantry was greater than ever before. thanks to the efforts of West Hartford resident Jason Jakubowski and Connecticut Food Bank and Food Share, and the countless volunteers who assisted people get through this crisis, was totally remarkable. And all one has to do is look at any footage on any news coverage, and you would see cars that you would never anticipate with their trunks open, getting whatever food they could to put food on their table. And Connecticut's usually known as one of those states that has one of the highest per capita income in the nation, one of the richest places in the world, and people were suffering. This pandemic affected everyone, regardless of where you came from. There's still more to come. We've had a eviction moratorium, foreclosure moratorium. It's uncertain how that will play out with respect to tenants and to landlords. But I'm certain if we have engaged, smart leaders, hopefully we'll find good solutions. Let's not forget that 2021-22 brought us a tropical storm that you just couldn't believe. It just came in the middle of this pandemic. People were without power, and they're saying to themselves, how much more can we get? But what did West Hartford have? Amazing first responders and a public works crew willing to do the task 24/7. And if that wasn't enough, our country experienced civil unrest, social unrest, and systemic racism. And those problems still exist. But I can say from where I sit this evening, I believe that here in West Hartford, we're taking the necessary steps to address those concerns. But there's a lot more to do. Police reform, social justice, condemning hate crimes. Those are the things that we're operating against while we're trying to determine the priorities and fund those priorities for our government. I already spoke about the election. And then the most unique thing has ever happened. Virtual meetings, Zoom, WebEx. I'll just say for myself, I'm glad that my daughter, college age, was home to get me to load the program onto our desktop for Zoom and show me how to work it. And the same thing with WebEx, because those are things I never experienced before. I feel bad that a lot of students were home, were isolated, weren't with their friends, weren't able to go outside and play, and our college kids missed a lot of what college kids like to do. In my particular circumstance, my daughter was in Barcelona and had to fly home from her study abroad program. Kids missed senior proms, they missed junior proms, sporting events. There's just so many things that are totally gone. But in the West Hartford way, we found a way to have some of these things take place. One can just remember last year the drive-through graduation parades for our high school students. Very, very successful. It was an excellent idea. Somebody came up with it and they executed it, and people were talking about maybe we'll continue to do that. So let's put all of 2021-2022 budget into context with developing a budget for fiscal year coming up. And for me, the guiding post has always been, let's meet and fund the priorities of our community. And I think the budget that we're adopting this evening does exactly that. And what are those priorities? We want to maintain our excellent, nationally recognized public schools. Where else do you read about 2 high schools in America that are in the top 10? Nowhere but West Hartford. And those opportunities that we provide our children are so important and pay dividends for a lifetime. We also are very lucky to be what I consider the pride of the region. We are the region's leader with respect to economic development and where people want to live, to work, and to raise their families. And that wasn't an accident. It took careful planning to execute that, to make that happen. We always talk about what's our third thing that people like a lot about West Hartford, and that is we have excellent, amazing police, fire, and EMS services. There's no question that when you pick up the telephone and dial 911, you're not wondering if someone's going to come or when they're going to come, but they're going to show up and provide you with the assistance that you need, whether it be medically or any other type of services. And that's because we invest in our employees. We train them well to handle any situation that may occur. And for that, I'm quite thankful. The issue of systemic racism is something that we are working on. We first acknowledge that it does exist. It's not something that does not exist. And we recently adopted a civilian review board. This budget calls for a creation of a position for diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're using social workers in conjunction with our police department to coordinate the efforts on a variety of calls, because not everything that they get called for is, criminal in nature. And there's in the capital plan, there's expenditure to purchase body cameras in accordance with the police accountability bill. So we are a leader in that, and we have funded those priorities. And let's not forget, and I hear this a lot, our roads are bad. They have a lot of potholes. Well, we have 209 miles of road. And we do the best we can to maintain our infrastructure through our reoccurring capital plan. And nobody wants to pay more taxes than they have to. And if we were to have perfect roads, it would be very, very expensive to do that. So through our engineering department, we're able to accomplish a lot of that. One of the largest decisions we've made, and we'll see the how this all turns out in a decade or two, is the issuance of pension obligation bonds. For many nights on this night, I'd sit around this table and hear from some of my colleagues, what are you going to do to address the unfunded pension liability that the town has incurred? Under Mayor Cantor's leadership, and thanks to the support of my colleagues, we're going to issue pension obligation bonds to address our unfunded pension liability head on. And if our actuaries are correct, we will save tens of millions of dollars. I won't be sitting in this chair to find out if that's actually the outcome. But I think when somebody is sitting here to review this, they're going to say, wow, those people in 2021 got it right. So, and what's all this about? It's about being fiscally responsible, fiscally astute, fiscally sound. And we've always strived to maintain our AAA bond rating. And through this entire term, we've been able to accomplish that, which allows us to borrow at much lower rates than communities that are not. So what will we see going forward? I think we're going to see smart grand list growth, and we're going to see redevelopment of underutilized parcels of property. And why is that so important? Because anything that can increase our grand list will reduce the current occupants, taxpayers in town, their portion of paying. If we can expand the base, we all pay less. And that's very important. So we need to provide the services that we do provide at a level that is excellent. And I think that's what we do. And I think that will be very, very important for us to be successful. And I'm positive that we will be. We're going to address affordable housing opportunities through towns. Through Mr. Winograd's hard work, ADUs became a reality so far this term. And we're always looking for things that make West Hartford the best. But let's not operate in a fantasy world. We need to understand that services do increase in price. And I think everyone sees that in their own home expenditures. So for us, trash collection is expanding at a high rate. What it costs to get rid of a ton of trash is expensive. Health insurance is expensive and keeps continuing to increase. And we're not immune from that type of increase. Contractual obligations, salaries that we pay to our employees, they continue to increase because nobody is going to work at the same rate that they did 10 years ago. It's just not feasible. So when you think about all that, you say, okay, you balance your expenditures versus your revenues, and you try to come out with something that looks like tonight's budget. And as the manager pointed out, our tax increase is 1.48% over the last 2 years with a mill rate of 42.42. So moving forward, there's more work to do, and I'll just leave with this. We're going to have a very serious discussion on how we use our American Rescue Plan dollars. And we're going to have community involvement. And I shared with the mayor an article I read last week from, I think it was the Brookings Institute. And he says, you're going to find two types of communities in America. One type of community is going to take all their money and put it into the budget because they have big holes in the budget. And when you look at it 10 years later, they're still going to have big holes in their budget. Then there's going to be other communities like West Hartford who are going to put some money into the budget to offset tax increases, but they're going to be smarter, more strategic, and they're going to invest in improvements that act as economic drivers. And you'll see those communities as the leading communities in America. And I think that's where we're going to be well positioned to do that. We'll grow the grand list, we'll study our town-owned space and facilities, we'll examine our zoning code, and we will make the right decisions because we do the due diligence, we do our homework, and we care. And tonight's budget, I think, is forward-thinking, and I will just wrap up with this one last thought. West Hartford's best days lie ahead, and I urge my colleagues to adopt this budget this evening for the good of our town and the fact that we are still in a global pandemic with a lot of uncertainty. But the certainty that this budget brings is that West Hartford will maintain its excellent quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davidoff. I'm going to go to the other members of the Finance Committee, and I'll go to Ms. Fay next. Ms. Fay.
Mr. Davidoff. I think they were very spoken from the heart, and this is a very big decision and responsibility that we have with the budget, without a doubt. I think there's some things that we could probably continue to work on in the future for sure. I think your points about the pandemic um, affected everybody, and people are still digging out. Our unemployment rates haven't come down, and people are out of work, and they're really facing financial strain. So I was hoping that we would come to a point where we would have no mill rate increase, and we did come close. And I certainly appreciate the effort that was put in by everybody around the table, as well as people on staff and Mr. Hart and everybody else who contributed to this. It's a big process and certainly is a challenging one. But that's what I was hoping that we'd get to. And the pension obligation bonds, I know it's passed and it's water under the bridge. So of course we're behind it, but I did have some challenges with the financials and economics on that. So we'll see how that pans out, and it doesn't take us off the hook permanently for ever increasing, potential increasing payments that will have to be made, or shortages just due to the assumed rates and interest rates and discount rates and some of the assumptions. The models are only as good as the assumptions. So I do have some reservations still about where we ended up with the budget, but those are my introductory thoughts. So thank you.
other remaining member of the Finance Committee, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I like Mr. Davidoff, want to take a little bit of time to just kind of reflect on where we are today and where what is before us with this budget. Just thinking about May of last year, and you kind of referenced this too. We were all starting to hear about what happened in Minneapolis. We were all dealing with our own families. I was dealing with 2 children under the age of 4 in my house, bouncing off walls, like many other young families, trying to figure that out, trying to deal with homeschooling, all while our amazing team here was keeping our town running and doing all of these amazing things. And there are kind of 3 things that made me think about when I think about what budget is before us and what has allowed us to kind of be such a strong community. And I think it's a budget that has both responsiveness, compassion, and creativity. And I think that over the last year, what we saw was, because of the investments that this town has made over the last couple of years, we have the ability to do all 3 of those things very effectively. First, with responsiveness, we were one of the first communities to recognize the pandemic and the school shut down, providing the options for folks to learn from home digitally. I think a lot of us were taken off guard when the superintendent just made that move, but it was the right move. And then the immediate reaction was then town staff got us online. We went into all of these different things, and thanks to Mr. Dodge and Mr. Hart for your amazing work there of recognizing what we can and what we should do at that time. I think that was so important that we had you guys in those positions, because I think people are defined by moments, and what we saw is we had really important, really intelligent, and people up to the task to perform there. And it was really amazing to see, particularly you, Mr. Hart, the way you dealt with everything so well. I think your military background really came in, and your ability to respond to the dynamics that happened before us. So I think that was super important. I think the other side of it, we had just made investments over the last couple of years in our fire and EMS, their ability to react and serve the community, whether they was the big issues of the time were PPE, right? That Mr. Davidoff salute. Our folks were on it, getting in with the state, making sure we had everyone was equipped and safe when they were going out to save lives. And then the other thing with the schools, I remember this very vividly, showing up at both getting emails from the school of saying, we need your help, and folks have been reaching out, how do we get involved, how do we help? Immediately they rolled out a flawless plan of getting people food and computers, of things no one had ever thought about or prepared for, but they just rolled it out, and it was such an amazing effort by the school district, and just kudos to them. And it was amazing to watch, and as someone who did volunteer for one of those things, to see families take food, right, is something that our generation never saw, but well, at least mine has not seen. But seeing people humbled to take food, and the fact that our district was ready to respond to that, but that was because we made the investments here to do that. There aren't a lot of as someone who's working in the education space, seeing communities not have school, we were ready to roll, and we were serving kids and providing access, and that's all because of the responsiveness that was built into the budget, and that we will continue to see in this budget. The other piece of it is the compassion, right? The town led with compassion. And Mayor Cantor was the perfect example of that, listening at all times, being present whenever she can, being on as many Zooms as possible. It was so important to see people listening, particularly in that moment of time. Is listening was so important, and we saw that, in so many different examples, whether it was us providing relief to the homeowners during that small period of time, and the ability to be able to do that was built in because of investments that are similar that are made in this budget. The ability to then also for most of us being in a relatively white community, being able to open our eyes and ears to what was going on in front of us, and having our own chief of police like basically hold hands with leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement and have multiple different rallies here in town. That compassion led by this community is something that again goes back to the leadership and the ability to invest in good people that come here. People want to work here, right? We wouldn't have Chief Reddick, or Chief Priest here if we didn't invest in these programs, and we've done that over time, and we do that again in this budget. And then just the ability for us to listen to the youth. Mayor Cantor and I participated in multiple different Zooms with listening to youth and what was going on, what was going through their head, not knowing all the stresses they had, but being able to say that we were doing that and being compassionate at that level, where we were even able to get Senator Murphy to come and participate. So I mean, a lot of stuff that was done during that time, and again, this budget that is before us that allows us to continue those efforts of working with our youth, and we see those different. We have a social worker built into here to help expand on what we saw with the police, and then creativity. One of the things that we really were trying to find was everyone was trying to find a way to make something normal out of what we saw, but you couldn't do it unless you were creative. And this town was so creative during that period of time. We saw, I think the first set I kind of ran through, but I have to give a shout out to Uraida and the word that she was, and creative as she was, to make sure we all were on those WebEx. Mr. Dodge making sure we were in line with the new executive orders, and Gina as well. We really appreciated the work there that was done to make that. But that was all creativity and thinking. And at that time, no one knew how to do this stuff. So, but the other pieces of creativity, the town staff responding to people wanting to have a Juneteenth event, right? In the middle of the pandemic, we had 500-600 people in the middle, everything up to code and spaced, and the creativity there was great. I mean, it was great to have Councilor Blanks leading it, Mayor Cantor leading it, meeting so many new folks coming out and kind of bringing their voice and their creativity to the table. But I think that the biggest demonstration of creativity is what took place when the town staff listened to the restaurants and what we did in town. It is, in my opinion, one of the gems of the state in regards to what we see. I mean, people from every part of this state compliment the town on the work that was done, and that was all done through creativity and thinking outside the box. How do we respond to people? How do we do this? And we did that because we had the resources to do that. We had the investment to do that. We had the foresight to do it. And then lastly, the work that was done by the leisure services during that, I know I was in it, and we had a lot of aggressive conversations with Helen, and she just stepped up to the plate in such a way with the mobile camps, making camps happen, just period, with the masks and making sure everyone was up to code, but the pop-up camps, allowing for the pools, keeping your ears open, like these are all things that could not again happen if they weren't for the investments. And we see that again today in this budget, where we are again listening to the community. We are being creative in this budget, and we are also being responsive to what is going on around us with the positions that are there to address the issues that we clearly confronted during this pandemic and are trying to address, whether it be the social worker or, as you alluded to, our new director of cultural responsiveness. Like these are just things that other communities are not thinking about, and it's amazing to be a part of this. I'm so proud of the work that was done to get here. It was a real collaborative effort, particularly with the folks here that were participating in the budget conversations, and it's just really good to see this come along. We're here in person, right? This is a big step, and it's really great to see all the hard work that went into this, and it's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to be supportive of this tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. We'll go to Ms. Kerrigan next.
thank everyone who plays a role in caring for West Hartford. No doubt a very desirable town to live in. Probably the most important role that we counselors have is in deciding how much of your money will go to the town. And for the last 6 years that I voted on our budget, the process by which we decide how much of your money will be spent on our town is essentially the same. The town manager presents a budget to the town council. The council, but mostly Mayor Cantor, works hard to reduce the amount of money residents will give to the town, at the same time maintaining precious services residents have come to rely on. Whether it's the price of gas, Netflix, housing, etc., costs keep going up. And similar to our personal budget, there's a balancing act. It's a give and it's a take. Understanding what our residents want, everything from services we've come to rely on, a community we can feel safe walking down our streets, calling 911 in an emergency and trusting we will be taken care of, whether it's a fire or a threat to our health and our safety, sending our children to a public school to receive a nationally recognized quality public education for both AP students as well as those with special needs, be it removing our waste or removing our snow or providing open space for all to enjoy. Everything costs money. Tonight, I will be wholeheartedly supporting this budget, a budget that began with a request by the town manager for an increase of 3.25%, despite a total between town and education of $35 million in American CARES Act money. We will vote on this budget tonight, and next year we will go through the same exercise. The town manager, will ask for more money from its residents for the town, and us, the council, will fight for more money for the residents. Sometimes I just feel like we're going about it all wrong. This year, a pandemic year, during a time when many residents were furloughed, lost their jobs, or closed their businesses right here in West Hartford, Mayor Cantor held more meetings than in past years with councilors, inviting an open exchange of ideas on how to reduce the tax burden. This year, Mayor Cantor spoke with each member of the Board of Education individually to see how to reduce or increase, not to mention the ongoing conversations with Matt Hart and Tom Moore, to get them to a place of compromise. Keep in mind that Mayor Cantor is a volunteer. We pay nothing for her time, her expertise, or her energy. Talk about a return on investment. But I think there must be a better way. This year, Mayor Cantor took the bold, fiscally responsible step towards a creative approach to addressing our budget, using pension obligation bonds in an effort to minimize tax increases in the future that was supported by the majority of the council. And I know Councilor Fay will disagree that focusing on an addition of a $100,000 plus new position, diversity and inclusion officer, isn't important because it pales in comparison to the size of our budget. But I say we must look at every single line item. We are fortunate to live in a town to attract residents who volunteer their time and their passion to make us a more diverse and inclusive town. Residents such as Adrian Billing-Smith, who not only organized concerned parents of color of West Hartford, but also brought about the name change of Goodman Green to Unity Green to dishonor slaveholders. She organized our first Juneteenth last year, and this year it will be a 2-day bonanza. Thank you, Adrian. Takesha Everett of Health Equity Solutions brought forward a resolution supported by the council declaring racism a public health crisis, and it's now making its way to the state. Thank you, Takesha. Earl Exum, WASCO, West Hartford African American Social and Cultural Organization, playing a role in an honest curriculum. Thank you, Earl. When my boys were at Whiting Lane, it was important that the library that my kids went to had books that reflected our family, what our family looked like. Lee Gluck, who ran the library, invited us to suggest additional books if the books that she had weren't ample. They were ample. Barry Walters, co-chair of the HRC, organized another West Hartford Pride event. Rosina Haskins, honored as Champion of Equity. The students and residents in our town fought to remove Native American mascots from our public schools before many other towns were even aware it was a problem, and recently produced a play, The Chieftain Project, about the struggle. We were so fortunate to have teachers like Tracy Wilson, Liz Devine, who brought forward the Witness Stone Project. Chief Reddick, our chief our police chief, spoke passionately and candidly at a gathering after the murder of George Floyd. He spoke of getting and giving the quote, talk, end of quote, as well as the fear that he had, even as a 6 feet 6 inch tall black man driving around. He's always working towards diversity and inclusion in his police force. This year, Chief Reddick welcomed our first diverse civilian police review board in an effort to minimize any injustices that might take place in his department. A few years ago, Superintendent Tom Moore devoted his convocation speech to racism as our biggest challenge. And that's from someone who increased diversity in his staff from 4.2% in 2000 to 10.3% in 2021. I could go on, but needless to say, for a town without the expense of an inclusion and diversity officer, West Hartford, through the work of caring individuals in our town, have done a yeoman's job in moving us to a more inclusive and diverse town. The last and final time the budget was amended, this go around, it was reduced to reflect a realistic starting date of this newly created position that, as of the last meeting, had no job description nor measure for success. Maybe that $100,000 plus would be better spent on an efficiency officer to come in and make recommendations on how to use our tax dollars more efficiently, how to reduce waste. Maybe it could be used as a bonus money for departments, be it Parks and Recs, Public Works, Police, or Fire. When they meet certain objectives, it could be used to reduce cost or bringing in valuable grants, an incentive reward to think outside of the box. Following a year where doing things differently became the norm, that creativity was the name of the game, our town rose to that challenge. We have survived the pandemic and came out even stronger. What better time now than now to apply those same skills, that same creativity, that same looking at doing things differently when we approach our budget? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kerrigan. And we will now go to Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the comments of my colleagues. I would like to share their statements that thanking town staff and also all of our colleagues on the table. We don't always agree on everything, but I appreciate you very much, and I regret that I can't be there in person this evening. For me, as you all well know, because I've been saying it for years, the budget vote comes down to sustainability from my perspective. And over my term on the council, my budget night remarks are usually somewhat long and cite to specific salary increases, areas of budget increases, overtime increases, et cetera, et cetera. This year, and probably to the relief of all of you and the interested public, I'm keeping my thoughts short. To me, the bottom line is that I believe the budget falls short of meeting the necessity of sustainability, which ultimately comes down to affordability for residents and businesses alike. First, the town received $25 million in American Rescue Act funds, as the town manager referenced earlier. Only approximately $4 to $5 million are being used in this budget, the balance to be used for a plethora of items over the next few years. The town considered, but ultimately rejected, using up to $8 million of these funds in this budget, which would have resulted in a near no budget increase. But the town elected not to, citing among other reasons a desire to avoid creating structural deficits in the budget in the out years. To this position, my response, as I articulated the other night, was that using the ARA funds more generously this year would have given taxpayers a well-deserved tax break, as many of us have experienced layoffs, furlough days, or pay cuts, as Councilwoman Kerrigan just mentioned, over the last year. And second, using the $8 million would have left approximately $17 million to smooth any potential structural deficits moving forward. But third, from my perspective, I think we should focus on also not creating structural deficits on the year-to-year budget on our end. And with respect to that point, this budget seeks to add new positions on both the town and Board of Ed side. Many of these positions are permanent in nature, and growing government does not tend to alleviate the tax burdens facing residents and businesses. And it creates structural deficits year to year, as we well know. The town's budget is unsustainable, in my view, for a variety of reasons. But there are clear budget drivers under the town's control, which we've discussed, that drive the exponential budget jumps year to year. I know very well that I am in the minority in my belief that the town's budget trends are not good for the town's future. Regardless, the fact remains West Hartford is unique in that it has reasonably high property values and one of the highest mill rates in the state. It has both. This is unique to West Hartford. This is not sustainable or affordable. Indeed, whether it's offering a developer a tax abatement to develop in town, or otherwise risk losing the development, or allow alternative dwelling units in an attempt to make residences more affordable, the town council has essentially acknowledged West Hartford's unsustainable budget trends. That said, these steps are mere policies designed to address the symptoms of unaffordability rather than cure its underlying cause, which is our unsustainable budget increases, again, in my view. Unaffordability in West Hartford is here, and it's here to stay unless things change. And in my view, unaffordability hits and hurts our most economically vulnerable the hardest. In my view, this budget falls short, making West Hartford's budget trend sustainable, and so I cannot support it. I thank you, Madam Mayor, for the opportunity tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. We will now go to Ms. Blanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I sit here and reflect, about a year and 4 months ago, March 5th, 2020, it was in this room where I began to chair a public safety committee meeting. And we began to anticipate and plan what strategies we were going to use in terms of providing services or equipment as this pandemic rolled forward. We began to think about how we would coordinate efforts with our public safety team, Chief Riddick, Chief Priest, the assistant chiefs, our health district director, Amy Kraus, and also anticipated the needs of the residents, the general public, what tools and equipment town staff and we as elected officials would also need. And it's funny that we commented on setting up Zoom and some of the other things because I, like the deputy mayor, my college-age daughters were home and I was at a loss. So I just have to send kudos out to all of the college kids that were in town at that time because I'm sure they were all helping their parents or elder relatives in terms of how to navigate this technical equipment. However, these services that needed to be performed, we also looked at how to do this effectively and efficiently, all while staying safe and remaining healthy. Many of our staff have experienced so many effects from this pandemic, and if there was ever a time when their resolve was being tested, it was this time, beginning March 2020 and up to the present and into the future, because we still have a long way to go. This is the time when government provides the assistance and support when it's needed. I too applaud our mayor because she has worked tirelessly before and since the pandemic began and continues to do so. She's an awesome leader and she sets the tone for this council. When you are an elected official, that is what you do. Therefore, we had to lead. We had to establish a strategy. We created committees to address the needs of our town. I was happy to serve on the Special Advisory Committee on Social and Community Recovery with Councilor Sweeney to keep our community safe by providing testing sites, summer camps for our youth, and staff focusing on safety, social and emotional health, yoga in the park, and many other appropriate activities focusing on safety and social distancing. We made difficult decisions to address issues that were long overdue, such as the pension obligation bonds, and why this time was the best time to address this long overdue issue. Then, the issue of race and discrimination, institutional racism, systemic racism, hatred towards groups because of your ethnicity and the color of your skin. These are deeply rooted in our society like a nasty weed that you can't pull free. But it is up to each and every one of us to make a change for our future generations that follows. We have done great work in addressing these issues. We established a Citizens Review Board to work with our PD and leadership. Many people in town submitted letters of interest, which showed the power of participation. And I am pleased with the members that were selected and are committed to do the work that they will be tasked to do in the days ahead. I'm also comfortable with the positions included in the budget for public safety, the social worker, the dispatcher, because it is critical that the men and women charged with protecting and serving the residents of our town have essential resources needed to deliver services each and every day around the clock. I am hopeful that our town will begin to look at diversity and equity in all areas and ask hard questions. That's what I believe in equity. That's why I believe an equity officer is appropriate. It is high time that we examine and evaluate ourselves, because when we know better, we are supposed to do better. Not someday, but today. We should never put off for tomorrow what must be done today. The budget is a good budget and reflects hard work by our professional town staff, our town manager, our mayor, our deputy mayor, and so many others. West Hartford continues to be a magnet, not only nationally, but internationally, for the past 50-plus years. And we, this body right here, are charged to continue the trajectory for advancement and improvement. I will vote in favor of this budget, and I would encourage my colleagues around the table and the virtual table to do the same. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Mr. Gold.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I want to thank everybody here in this room who participated on telephone call in putting together a very unusual year. Truly, I dare say historic, but that's really what it was. There's none that I can remember like this. Mr. Davidoff, my neighbor, friend, Finance Committee, Deputy Mayor, you and your committee, I applaud all of your efforts in putting together a budget with this moderate increase, working down from where it began to something that is more palatable, and I appreciate that. Mayor Cantor, you work tirelessly. It goes without saying. We all say it. A lot of people don't say it, but it needs to be said. We all don't. I mean, some at the table get paid, but this side on the phone, we don't get paid. And it's a testament to the caring, the devotion, the hard work that we want to lead by and promote our town. West Hartford is a place I've learned to call home, even though I grew up in Wethersfield, and I want to be in no other place. So it's great to me. Mr. Hart, thank you, your team. Your write is amazing, by the way. Thank you for all of your hard work in bringing this forward. Specifically, Peter, Privatera, Mr. Privatera, and your team. But I thank you for taking my calls at odd hours and answering sometimes odd questions, but questions nonetheless that need to be answered. So I certainly appreciate that. I appreciate you creating a workable budget and then having a pivot with the American CARES Act and new funds that were the Rescue Act that was coming in to our town, and trying to understand and move through that wilderness of new understanding. However, the budget, as we know, is still increasing. This concerns me, and I think it concerns all of us. Last year, I voted in favor of the budget, as did most of us, including some on the phone. And the budget was effectively flat. This year, we have an increase of 1.48%, as we indicated, which effectively, over 2 years, is an increase of 0.74% each year. The numbers are clear. The budget still is increasing, and that's a fact. The year has been very difficult. We've all experienced loss, as we've all said. Some have lost jobs, some have lost family, lost savings. Some families are living on a shoestring. There's food insecurities. I know a lot of people have volunteered to help with food insecurities, to provide food and help people with those needs. But we can't ignore the facts that there's been a tremendous strain on our town through this trying year plus. I do also want to thank Amy Krause for everything that she's done, as Mr. Davidoff has pointed out. It's been pretty amazing job that she's done through this nightmare, and I also applaud the volunteers who came forward to help at all of the clinics, both the COVID testing and COVID vaccinations. We talk about budget drivers. I've had many conversations with many of us here. Police, fire, education, public works, pension. And what we really need to do is ask ourselves, I think I had this conversation with Mr. Privatera at one point, is how can we do better? How can we create a better future for West Hartford? Every year, but for the last, the budget's increased. I know Mr. Williams had mentioned that. And he talks about unsustainability, and being fiscally responsible, which my other colleagues at the table have spoken about as well. And fiscally responsible is a key part of what I think this budget provides for. There are towns, Middletown, Danbury, Reading, to name a few, that have created a balanced flat budget. And I guess my question is, as we're all talking and sitting here and discussing it, we should be the beacon. We are the leaders of Greater Hartford, of Connecticut, and I think that's something that we need to strive to be. And if other towns can do it, why can't we? And those are questions that I have as I've been going through this. We have solutions. We've looked and created, with great leadership from Mayor Cantor, pension obligation bonds. I know Mr. Privatera has been instrumental in helping put that together as well. I applaud your efforts with that. That was truly an amazing, creative, forward-thinking approach to helping what we need to do here with our pension. However, there's more issues here to look at. We can't look at that just singularly. We need to address the ancillary issues involving our pension plan. And we've had long conversations about that too, Mr. Hart. We need to collectively move from our existing plan and implement a pension using a construct of defined contribution. This isn't a new concept, but we can't be afraid to move in that direction. We've spoken about strategic consolidation. I think that's a key component to a vision that this town needs to have. Strategic consolidation of our buildings. If this pandemic has taught us anything, it's taught me, I hope everybody else, that we've worked, certainly, we can do more with less. Virtual meetings, all these things that we've done, brick and mortar is becoming obsolete. We know that our buildings are tired in town, and there's a need of significant dollars to invest, as we've seen in the CIP that we'll be talking about. We should be taking this opportunity to streamline our inventory. Let's look at other opportunities in town. why do we have 2 golf courses? When one course, and I know this is a little bit of a weed, but one course loses money in perpetuity, as I've gone back in the budget through the years. And that might be an opportunity that we can use to save money and transform our town into more modern, much more needed multi-purpose structures that enable our town, as we're all talking about, to be situated for the next 20 years. We also need to be more open to business and economic growth in the town. These are drivers we need to focus on, and I've spoken with the mayor about this at length, and that's a key component to where we need to be looking. I applaud Kristen Gorski and her tireless efforts in this regards and putting this together. Bringing my vision of online marketing for West Hartford is a great beginning, but we must continue to be forward-thinking and innovative. As we've all talked about, and I'll kind of wrap it up as I don't want to be too long-winded, as we've all spoken a lot. One of the most significant reasons I have concerns with this year's budget, and I want to be very careful, after speaking with many friends, many colleagues, taxpayers, people are still without a job. While the market has increased tremendously and fortunes have been made, the unemployed, those trying to find employ and can't, those looking to support their family and can't, looms in my mind as we sit here to decide to increase taxes, even a moderate 1.48%. I do applaud all the work that we've done together here. I want to move forward together in a manageable way to create a manageable budget. I think considering everything that's happened over this last year, in terms of me personally and the town as a whole, I think it's important that we move forward with the budget as it's been proposed to work towards a better future in West Hartford. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, we almost did it. We are getting ourselves through quite a year. And boy, I was not optimistic a year ago. And I'm feeling so much better now. Let me just start off by saying one of the reasons I feel great is because I've got my jab. If anyone is listening to this right now who is medically able to get a shot and hasn't done so, please do so. If you have any reservations about it, call anybody on this council. Call anybody else that you respect. Please be informed. Get your shot. You'll feel better for it. The freedom feels wonderful. So we got through it. And we got through it, a year ago, things were pretty tough. The death rates in Connecticut were really high, among the highest in the country. And we suffered in West Hartford. And what I think that all showed us, one thing that we learned from this experience was the critical role of community and of responsible leadership. And both were absolutely essential for us to do as well as we did. From food banks to vaccination clinics, to having our staff go out, handing out masks in the center when people were more reluctant to do so, going door to door and offering people shots, sending out social workers, obviously the work of the health department, but again, the whole town. The physical structural changes, having, again, tents out front where food is being handed out. As I entered the building today, seeing the window that engineering put up so people could continue to do business without coming into the building. All of that, again, was based on just great leadership and a team here that met the challenges. As a government, as elected officials, we became even more transparent than we've ever been before. Our committee meetings that used to have absolutely nobody there, we'd be a few of us in a room, and you'd forget that it was a public meeting just because no one happened to be there. We don't have that anymore. We have to be careful of what we say because we're being televised, even in our small little committees. And hopefully, maybe occasionally people are watching it. I can't say it is the most exciting TV, But everybody had that ability. And again, thanks WHCTV. And, I'm sorry, the new name of it, I forget it, but this will probably be edited out now, and but the sorry, Dallas, no, don't. That'd be a FOI violation, and we're not going to do that. Very, very transparent. But again, I mean, that all happened, and I think we all should be really proud of that. We should be proud of our residents. We should be proud of everybody in this room who worked so hard to pull it all together. And the schools. I don't need to go down the list. What our schools pulled off this year is just amazing. More than we could have possibly hoped. It mentioned the play that I think Councilwoman Kerrigan mentioned the play. What a great example, just coming right out of this and having this play on the controversy from a few years ago. And the other, and how high performances and just all the things happening as we come out of this tough times. I'm so proud of our schools. We had to. The Board of Ed budget came in, a little higher than it ended up, but that's sort of the process that we go through. But I'm convinced that we are funding the schools in the way they need to be funded. That'll enable them to continue to be the fantastic schools they are. The fact that Hall and Conard are, again, top 10 in the state is not an accident. I'm so proud of both of those schools, and certainly I will do everything I can to protect those two schools and keep them the excellence that they have, as well as all the other schools in town. I do want to respond a little bit to some comments that were made about the budget process. When the budget came out, again, this is not an easy project. This and this. We get these books, and they're filled. This doesn't come up in a day. And these are put together by our professional staff. And at the time, it was unclear what we could do with the federal funds. We knew some money was coming, but we did not know whether it could be used and how it could be used. So we were provided, I think, a perfectly reasonable assessment of our needs, which is exactly what we want to get from our staff. And then it was properly left to the elected officials to make value judgments as to how much, once we found out what the rules were about the federal money, to make some value judgments as to how it should be allocated. We had some disagreements on that, but I think we ended up getting to a place which is reasonable. We can't take too much. I very much respect the opposing view of Chris Williams. I know that he has studied the budget. I know that his position on that we should use more of the money, or a lot of the money, to eliminate a tax increase could be done. I simply disagree. I think that's an honest difference of opinion to have. But certainly, I don't see, in terms of the total spending, it isn't like it came down very much. Really, the difference between the original budget proposed by Mr. Hart and the one that we're adopting is really more about the revenue side and this federal money, which again, I think is our decision to make. And again, I think it's a really important decision for us to make because we don't want to do and create the structural deficit. And to explain that, again, last year, for example, we took $1.5 million from our reserve. At least that was our plan. We were able to put it back. But I was, challenged to make that decision. I don't like doing that. I believe we should pay, sort of as we go to the extent possible. And if we have a need, we should tax appropriately to pay for that need and not go into our reserves, except for emergencies. Well, guess what? Last year was an emergency. And it was okay last year, not knowing what the year would be, not knowing that we'd get a vaccine and be, rolling this time, not knowing certainly what happened to our economy, not knowing what the elections would do. I mean, there were a whole lot of unknowns a year ago, and thus it made sense for us to borrow a little bit, to go into our reserve fund. This year, I think we have a better idea of where things are going. I don't think we face that emergency. And to take too much money from this federal money and then again create holes for the future that we would have to make up with bigger tax increases, I don't think is responsible. But again, I can certainly understand differing views on that. And again, that's what we're elected for. That's the kind of decision we make, and frankly, not you, Mr. Hart. So again, I want to thank you personally for the work you've done. Again, I think this is a very good budget. I think what you presented originally was a very good budget. I'm glad we were able to figure out a way to use the federal money to reduce the burden on the taxpayers. And I think we're ending up in a good place. On the issue of the diversity, equity, inclusion officer, listen, we all voted to declare racism a public health issue. Skeptics looked at that as being just words. And at some point you have to put your money where your mouth is. We can't say that and not mean it and not then dedicate resources to begin the process of putting, institutional resources, not just volunteers who do a fantastic job and we need them. Again, we need community, but we also need government. And everything we can do to make our government, what we directly control, more equitable, more diverse, more inclusive, is well worth the money. And I applaud you for finding the way to put that into our budget, and I wholeheartedly support that position. I also support a new position of a paralegal type position for our Fair Rent Commission. There are some other things we've added in that I also think are necessary, but that one in particular I think is forward-looking. We are facing potentially some real challenges with our rental infrastructure in town. Rents are starting to go out of control. We know about the housing, hopefully bubble, I guess, that we have right now. Rents will follow. And we need to have a fully functional fair rent committee to evaluate and to be able to look at what's going on. And putting money there now is the reasonable thing to do. I have no doubt that that person will be busy. And so putting money there, again, is responsible. It is looking forward to what we can anticipate, which is what we should do in a budget. We should be looking towards what our challenges going forward and trying to address them. And particularly these two jobs, that's exactly what we're doing. We're seeing the challenges looking forward, and we're addressing them in our budget. If it turns out we don't need a fair rent commission, great. Then we can take that out of the budget next year. I doubt very much that'll be the case. And I am quite sure the need for diversity and equity will certainly not go away. I would love to think it would, but that's fantasy thinking. So overall, again, I think this is a budget that is both prudent and responsible. It preserves essential services and puts us in as good a position as possible for the coming year. I thank everybody involved. I thank my colleagues for all their hard work. And I thank the taxpayers for who are watching tonight and for their attention, because I believe that our community is better for everybody's participation and for all the hard work everyone is doing. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. I'll close, and so much has been said, and I appreciate all the incredible input. Really, everybody had such meaningful things to say. I do have to take a little look back and where we are and going forward as well. I won't be as detailed because you've heard so much of it. But I want to first start by saying the thank yous. I do have to do the thank yous again. But I want to first start by thanking Mr. Hart. Without his leadership and real attention to communication, structure, detail, and accountability, we would not have gotten it through this year the way we have. So from really, and I was very close to all that happened, and I sincerely appreciated everything that you did to make us all work very, very tightly, function very efficiently, and again, you were provided the tools to do that, and that was essential. And I saw how important that is. And I'm adding, like Bob McHugh, for instance, to that mix. Bob's position was added last budget. He's our emergency management coordinator. what Bob did on a daily basis was priceless, really, for this community. So he did save lives. So thank you for everything. I want to actually thank every single director. I want to thank the whole staff of the town for their tremendous work, doing things that really were tremendous and nothing that we, really expected people to do. I mean, watching paramedics expect to go in and save somebody from a heart attack, or, fix somebody that dislocated their arm like I did, or things that, things that that you can, they don't expect on early March or mid-March to be running in without all the protective gear maybe that they should have to save somebody that might expose them and their families to a deadly virus. So that was true with really all of our frontline workers. That included Public Works, that included obviously our police department in a very dramatic way. So incredible. This is what you gear up for. This is really, I talk sometimes about insurance and how important is insurance. Honestly, it's really important when you most need it, and this is kind of that time. I want to thank Peter Privatera for his leadership, guidance, and his real thoroughness in everything that he did. We did a lot in a year when there was so much being asked and we were pulled in so many different directions. So we've asked for many iterations of all different things, and you've been so responsive and given us a light and an honesty to what we need to know. Lisa and Patty, Lisa Newton, Patty Lewis, your names were mentioned, but I just want to say we're so lucky to have you, and we're so grateful for your expertise and hard work to get us through this budget season. And I will say, the budget didn't start for me in January. I don't think it started for any of us in January. It started last year when we made our budget decisions and we knew that we were not going to do an increase. We knew we were digging a hole. We knew that we were putting $1.5 million of our fund balance, and whether we agree on it or not, the rating agencies don't like that. And we also knew that we were preparing for the largest issue in our town's history, to ultimately save hundreds of millions of dollars to our taxpayers. So those decisions, and I do remember some of my colleagues saying, I think this is just going to dig a big hole for next year, and you're going to come back with a 4 or 5 or 6% or 7% next year. I remember those numbers in that discussion. So that work to get us to a place where we aren't having that situation is work that has been happening constantly all the way through between management of staff on the town side as well as the school side. Laying off part-time workers, not bringing them back until that need was there. Being as strategic, leaving positions open that weren't as critical as other positions. So all of that work really has been going on. I also want to thank all of my colleagues. I appreciate all your words and your work, and we've all mentioned we're volunteers. This is a lot as a volunteer job, and especially when there's a pandemic with everything else going on in our lives. So I appreciate your work, your commitment to not only be at the meetings that are present, but the talks that we have to process things and to make sure that we're governing in the best way we can for this very, very special community. I thank you for that. And I know you all care and you're doing what you think is in the best interest of the town. I think this budget is really in the best interest of the town long-term, not for this current year, but in this year, next year, and the many years after that. I want to thank Mr. Davidoff for taking the reins on the Finance and the Finance and Administration Committee. It was a heavy lift, and you really accomplished so much, and I really had a tremendous faith in your work, and I'm very grateful for all you did. The chairs of all the committees, public safety, our community planning, our leisure and social service committees, all my colleagues to the left of me, really have extended their efforts, thought creatively, pushed me to keep calling Matt, texting Matt, making things happen, floating ideas, engaging with the public. I know we all have had many conversations with the public on all different with all different ideas, and personal stories. And so again, thank you all for your tremendous leadership. I want to thank you for your flexibility too. When I need to give a really, really special shout out to our Corporation Counsel, Dallas Dodge. Dallas did so much. We would never have been able to respond to this crisis in any way without Dallas's leadership, strategy, advice, and really organizing everybody. Jarida Reinheimer, who you all mentioned, thank goodness for Jarida. She really automated us and made us all happen. And Jen Evans, all the work that Jen did. The communications from WEHA, Ronnie Newton, were really critical to, Ronnie is not a town employee or town staff, but the communication is relied upon on our town staff, and it was really important. But Dallas really was on top, and we would get texts at midnight on an executive order from the governor, so we had the information in the morning to be able to react and prepare. And Gina, tirelessly working and providing all of the legal guidance that we needed, every day. And as things were continuing to change, I loved Lamb's quote early on in this pandemic: "We're building the plane as we fly it," and that's what we were doing. And sometimes we had to reapply some maybe some structure or something, but it really felt like that, like we hadn't been in places before. I have been on many calls nationally with U.S. Conference for Mayors or other international, whether it's Route 50 people, but we are very lucky to have consistent leadership from our governor. And there are many states where the governor was doing one thing and the states wanted to do something, and they were especially mask wearing or keeping things open or closed. But there was clear guidance so that one town wasn't doing one thing and one town wasn't doing another thing. And that really did help us make it through this portion of the pandemic. It's not over, as much as I would love it to be. We're a top-rated community, and that is not from last year, the year before, the year before. It is all of the professional work that has been done and the long-term investments that have been made. And people come here from all over. I was at the center this past weekend, and there were two young ladies that we started to talk. Well, my husband talks to a lot of people, and they started talking, and oh, where are you from, and blah blah blah, and they were from Western Mass, and then one of them actually was from I think from Litchfield County, and they said this is where we like to come because it's a great place. There's just wonderful energy and great choices, and it's very social and it's very central. We meet so many of our friends here, so that was a wonderful thing to hear. But people don't want to just go out here; they want to live here. They want to invest here. They want to open their business here because they know that they have professional staff that is supporting them. And I will go through some of it, but Kristen Gorski and Chris Conway, again, not our Chamber of Commerce is not a a town branch, but it is a partner in everything we do. And Kristen also worked absolutely tirelessly to provide information on all of the relief programs available, and so much information. And I would send her something. She said, I just sent that out, just because so much was a race to get that money, a race to fill that, to make sure that you had those resources. It's not by chance that in the last 6 months that there were two, not one, but two New York Times articles with only one town in Connecticut mentioned, West Hartford, Connecticut. And again, that's prudent financial practices and commitments to our pillars of education, public safety, excellent quality of life, and terrific town management. I want to, at this point, just say thank you to our superintendent of schools for his tremendous leadership and his whole staff. Rosina Haskins, I still see the pictures of Rosina and the work that she did to not miss one day of providing food in our community, and the importance of that, and the Board of Education that has really heard a lot from the community when they, parents, when they are passionate about something, give opinions like nothing else. And I so appreciate their work and all that they had done to make the schools function as high level and be as forward-thinking as they are. And these are traditionally, the expectations are high. People move here for the schools, and, as my colleagues have already mentioned, top 1% in Newsweek high schools, gold medals, best high schools from U.S. News and Report, the only two that we could identify. And after looking at thousands of schools, top 500 STEM schools, the 6 out of 11 elementary schools of distinction for state. It was also, I always thought that was funny. We were awarded STEM awards, but then we were also awarded the Best Music Award. So it was from one end to the other, which I think is so critical and important for developing young minds and people that are going to be leading our country. And for the town side, Time Money Magazine ranked top small cities with populations over 50 to 300,000, the only one in the state. Best community, this was a best community for a music educator in the U.S. Niche, number one place to live in the 4th year in a row. This isn't just a one-time thing. Best city for remote work. I mean, that contributed to so much, I think, of people looking for homes that they can't find in our town. Best city to find a job in Connecticut. And that was from Zippia. But again, lots and lots of independent people looking at us and saying, they're doing it right. And that, again, doesn't come from 1 year or 3 years. It comes from year after year after year of prudent fiscal management, great administration, and real passion. As Beth was saying, the volunteers, we have tremendous volunteers. Helen will say, that living in West Hartford is not a spectator sport. You have to step in, and we have volunteers all over that do that and make us all better. From Amy starting contact tracing, I think in January, well, she's always been doing contact tracing, but they were doing contact tracing before there was public knowledge that COVID was headed in the direction that it was. And the work that they did very early on with anybody that it just really helped to contain. I have to go back to the schools for 1 second. 0 days of school missed. First week, 5,000 schools were distributed, 1,300 laptops in week 1. Total devices were 3,150. And I know WHCI helped to repurpose some money so that those devices would get into the kids' hands, that in 5 days there was virtual learning taking place. 16,000 meals were delivered in July and August, and then September through January, 226,000 free meals. We had our elementary schools went back October 19th, one of the earliest in the state. Many districts were remote until January. We were the largest district to maintain our educational plans, and our high schools went back full-time 317. Our teachers were remarkable. They were our heroes. They were courageous, amazing, and incredibly dedicated. Somebody said a comment to me that just was like a knife in my heart. They said, well, the teachers are remote, so they're not really working. And I was like, what? And my daughter-in-law's a teacher, and I saw all that, and no, they were working so hard, as they were trying to educate their own children, too, at the same time. Again, our health department, contact tracing, information, all of the guidance and advice that they gave us, and calling and reaching out to DPH on specific questions that we all had. Pivoting to virtual meetings at Corporation Counsel's office was so critical to all of that. And WHCI also was so important. We did some creative things like internal testing for our public safety, partnering with Jackson Lab to provide, making sure that if there was an exposure, that public safety workers had a prompt test that was almost always within 24 hours. When those tests were not coming back in 24 hours, they were accessible and done internally, and it really helped to keep our staff working with less overtime and keep people safe. The emergency policy group, again, made so many important decisions time after time, but it was collaboration. It was talking to each other and making sure we were all on the same page. How about the library? The library stepped up to be the center of communication. They became, as I often have said, the library is our kitchen, and that everyone was going to the kitchen to find out, okay, where can we go next? And they have done remarkable work. But they partnered with other departments, as did everybody: fire, police, health, library, social services, our schools, our public works, our economic development team, working again, our Chamber of Commerce, facilities. All of these departments were working in a way that we have not seen them work. And I remember seeing one of our paramedics, a leader on our paramedics, said this wouldn't have happened 5 years ago, when we were doing the vaccinations, everything was clicking and coming together. And again, because of the leadership, the communication, the tools, and the resources that people had at their disposal. We developed recovery committees, and one of the things that I said to Matt after getting off one of my Harvard Bloomberg webinars, and I would say, all right, we are going to be a government of possibilities, not of probabilities, and we're going to try things, and they might not work, and that's okay, but that really, the outdoor dining really came out of that, and it really came out of, okay, we can do this fast, and the governor's allowed us. He could have been, he allowed us the path to get there, and we envisioned it in ways that other places could not and did not. So being citizen-centric, Matt knows this very well. We get back to everybody, and if you have a concern, it's customer service, and that again, it doesn't happen if we aren't prepared to do that. I think the deputy mayor mentioned a storm, and on top of everything else. So not only were we dealing with the pandemic, and then you have a natural disaster that impacts that family in needs, you have to figure out, especially flattening all of those departments, breaking down all the walls that existed before to make sure that communication, that synergy, that reaction happens as quickly as it does. We all knew, again, last year we dug a hole. We had contractual increases, and we worked with all of our collective bargaining units to try to make sure that we were getting, the right combination of keeping people and giving, so we tried to actually get no increase for a couple of our bargaining units, and it didn't work. We had other concessions that were made. Healthcare has always been a challenge for us, and we really have been able to do that. I just want to, so when we talk about we added positions, we also kept positions open, and we don't know whether we're going to be filling those positions or not. It's just not additive. It's actually addressing some priorities that we have now, and that is social justice and racial equity advancement, and all of those elements that make us a better town. And that's what the DEI position will do. Social work to help our police. They have the tools now of Interval House, and they have partnerships with social services, and they will continue to have dedicated social service people that can assist them with their work in our community and assisting our community. We have a dispatch system that has to be upgraded to make sure that the paramedic that all of dispatch is working in the best way and the most efficient way and the accurate way with our paramedics to ultimately save and to be more streamlined. Legal, it's never a good thing when you have attorneys doing paralegal work. That's not a good use of our resources. It's frustrating and exhausting for them, and it doesn't make them efficient. And so we are supportive of that, and adding, we are going through a reval. We have somebody in assessments. We are going to need that position, and that might be a short-lived position. We don't know. That might not be long-term, but it might be. And so we'll get through each year, and we'll analyze it. And if it doesn't work for us, then we will either change it or eliminate it. Dollars speak our values. So we can't just say we care about education and not fund it. We can't, especially with the mental health challenges, the learning recoveries that are facing our students. And so if we care about racial equity, we have to fund those positions. But again, this is not only additive. I don't want people to think we just kept adding. No, positions were either kept vacant or even may not be filled. So that's the dynamic. We are on a path to recovery and reimagining. We're not going to go back to what we were before because, again, our staff know what it's like to work collaboratively and the benefit and the energy and the synergies that come from that, and how our residents appreciate that. We will work more collaboratively, creatively, and efficiently, and we will continue to do that. And we have many people in need. We understand that, and we have to provide the services to people that are in need that no one else can provide them. So we need to protect our most vulnerable. And there are going to be, again, this pandemic is not, it's not completely gone. We're still learning about it. I was at UConn Health. They're talking to an epidemiologist the other day, and he said they think that the antibodies will last about 9 months potentially for the vaccines. So we're going to have to respond in a way and be fully resourced in a way that we're going to need to tap into those resources, and that means that resource that we got, we might not get the same money as we did as FEMA. They may say, no, you need to dip into your allocation from the rescue funds and not go to FEMA for PPE and for setting up vaccination clinics and all of the things that we might need to do. We also are going to spend, allocate and resource money to invest in things that will save us money down the road. And those are going to be important decisions that our public will make, this council will make. And I know that is going to be something that we will engage with the public. I just want to say about the pension obligation bonds that it really is. This is when we talk about sustainability and talk about how do we change trajectory. Next year we would be looking at another $4 million increase if we didn't issue pension obligation bonds, or we would lose our AAA bond rating because we wouldn't be able to fund that pension obligation bonds, or we would be cutting so many positions that we would be really feeling that $4 million or $3.5 million is significant. That's some departments, and or we would be increasing our taxes to meet those needs. So this was something that needed to get done. Now was the right time with interest rates the way they were, and we tested it. We kicked the tires. We did the work that we needed to do to test whether this was the right strategic decision for the town. And I believe, as Mayor Davidoff said, when we are long gone from this, people will be thanking us. I don't know if they would have what would have happened, but hopefully they will have that knowledge. We're going to continue to work on economic development and creative things in economic development. So redevelopment is happening, and we are going to be that vibrant leader in the region. So I'll end with this. Decisions are the hardest things to make, especially when it is a hard choice between where you should be and where you want to be. And we are where we should be on this. And I do have to just do one more quote because it's Shaquille O'Neal, and you know Shaquille and I are like this. We're just so much alike. And he said, excellence is not a singular act, but a habit. You are what you repeatedly do. And I do believe West Hartford is what we repeatedly do. And with that, I think we can go to a roll call vote on 7A, D, and E. Ms. LeBreau.
Okay, for item 7A, the ordinance concerning appropriations for the fiscal.
I'm sorry, Dallas had a point.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. These items will need to be voted on separately, so if we could move each
Yes,
item
I'm sorry.
individually. And just as a reminder, we'll also require an amendment on item 7B.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dodge. I meant to move them all separately, not together, but 7A, Ms. LeBreau. We are moving 7A. Do you want to just read it? Would that be helpful? I think, Mr. Davidoff, just read the item, and then Ms. LeBreau can go right into
Madam Mayor,
roll
I
call.
move adoption of an ordinance concerning appropriations for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Ms. LeBreau, roll call.
Ms. Blanks,
Yes.
Ms. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff,
Yes.
Ms. Fay,
No.
Mr. Gold,
Yes.
Ms. Kerrigan,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Winograd,
Yes.
Mr. Williams. Was that a no, Mr. Williams? Okay. So it passes 7-2.
That's what I have as well. Okay, and now we go to 7D, Mr. Davidoff.
Madam Mayor, I have a question on Corporation Council because there's a substitute resolution for 7B. So do I move the original and then mention the substitute?
We're going to 7D right now.
Oh, we're going to D?
Yeah, because we discussed 7A, D, and E.
Gotcha, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have a question, sorry, Mr. Dodge.
I have an answer if you rethink it.
All right, but I'll be back to B to ask my question, don't worry. You contemplate that while I'm doing D. I move adoption of a resolution concerning the tax levy on the list of October 1st, 2020.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. We will go to roll call. Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Blanks,
Yes.
Ms. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff.
Yes.
Ms. Fay? Ms. Fay, I didn't hear that.
Can you repeat that, Ms. Fay? Can you repeat that, Ms. Fay?
Sorry, no.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gold,
Yes.
Ms. Kerrigan, Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Winograd,
Yes.
and Mr. Williams.
No.
That's 7 in favor and 2 nays.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. And now to 7E, Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move adoption of a resolution authorizing year-end budgetary transfers.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Blanks,
Yes.
Ms. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff.
Yes.
Ms. Fay, Mr. Gold. Mr. Gold,
Yes.
Ms. Kerrigan, Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Winograd,
Yes.
and Mr. Williams.
No.
That, again, is 7 in favor and 2 nays.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. Now to 7B, Mr. Davidoff.
Madam Mayor, I asked Corporation Council my same question. I'm certain we get a better answer a few minutes later.
We had a text on this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My suggestion would be that because the original ordinance was already submitted as part of the agenda, the motion should be to adopt the ordinance. Subsequent to that, I would recommend that the deputy mayor make a motion to amend by substitute, which I believe everybody was sent to everybody and is also uploaded to board docs. The town manager can then explain the substitute amendment. The motion would then be to adopt the substitute amendment and then to adopt the ordinance as amended, if that made any sense.
Lord, okay,
So first, the main motion to adopt the item.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dodge. So I would move that we adopt an ordinance deauthorizing $765,000 projects authorized in the capital improvement program for fiscal year 2021-22, appropriating $3,834,000 for projects in the capital improvement program for fiscal year 2021-22, appropriating $23,496,000 for projects in the capital improvement program for fiscal year 22-23, and authorizing the issuance of bonds of the town in the amount not to exceed $26,565,000 to finance the appropriations and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose.
and now move the amendment.
So, Madam Mayor, the motion has been moved and seconded. If the deputy mayor would like to propose an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. The council is in possession of a substitute amendment. I move that we amend with the substitute ordinance.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Hart, can you explain?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. There's an amount in the title of the posted agenda that was incorrect. It was off by $80,000. So if you see on the agenda, under 7B, the second clause appropriating $3,834,000 for projects in the CIP for next fiscal year, that amount should be $3,914,000. The difference is $80,000 for school building exterior work that the Board of Ed had approved and we included in the plan. And because we did not have the ability to issue a revised agenda, you need to make the correction in this fashion.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Now we have the amended motion. Sorry,
So,
Mr.
thank you, Madam Mayor. The question now is to amend with the substitute, and that vote can be taken by voice.
Okay. All in favor of the substitute amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody else want to say aye? This is just a vote on the substitute amendment.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And now, the question now is on the ordinance as amended with the substitute. So, Mr., do we want to? It is a roll call. Okay. We will go first to, could you read 7? Oh, you did read 7B. We're not doing this. Okay. Is there any discussion for 7B or 7C? I think everybody's talked. Okay. So now to roll call. 7B, Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Blanks.
Yes.
Ms. Cantor.
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff.
Yes.
Ms. Fay.
No.
Mr. Gold.
Yes.
Ms. Kerrigan.
That was a yes.
That was a yes. Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Winograd.
Yes.
And Mr. Williams.
No.
It's adopted 7-2.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. And now to 7C, we can go right, Mr. David, I want you to read that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move adoption of an ordinance concerning appropriations to and in the Capital Improvement Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Blanks.
Yes.
Ms. Cantor.
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff.
Yes.
Ms. Fay.
No.
Mr. Gold.
Yes.
Ms. Kerrigan.
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Winograd.
Yes.
And Mr. Williams.
No.
That is 7-2. It's adopted.
Thank you very much, Ms. LeBreau. And now we will go to announcements. Yes, we go to announcements. Sorry about that. And I will begin Wednesday, May 26th, 7 p.m., community workshop on transit-oriented development. This is a planning initiative that the town is doing with a focus on TOD that will review the zoning ordinances around its two Connecticut fast-track stations. This effort is a continuation of past planning studies and seeks to further many of the goals and strategies outlined in the recently adopted Plan of Conservation and Development. A community workshop via Zoom is scheduled to provide participants with information regarding the study, TOD, and most importantly, hear from our residents, businesses, and taxpayers on the future of the station areas. Please join us at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, May 26th. Provide input. Meeting access is on board docs on the town website. I am not reading that. Monday, May 31st, 10:30 a.m., Memorial Day. The Memorial Day ceremony will air on WHCI at 10:30. Virtual ceremony is complete with West Hartford Police and Fire Color Guards, performances by Conard Solo Choir singing the national anthem, and Bennett Johnson, 8th grader at King Philip Middle School, playing taps. I will be Mayor Sherry Kander will provide a special message. Pastor Bob Niebel of West Hartford United Methodist Church will give a prayer, and Patrick Carroll, Post Commander of American Legion Hayes Village, Post 96, and a Marine Corps veteran will deliver the keynote address. The ceremony will conclude with a list of West Hartford veterans who have passed away since last Memorial Day. The names will scroll at the end of the program. Special thanks to West Hartford Community Interactive for assembling all of the pieces of this ceremony to bring you a meaningful program on this holiday. The ceremony will air on Comcast Channel 5, Frontier Channel 6098, and on YouTube. In addition, the American Legion Hayes Village Post 96 will hold a brief outdoor ceremony at the Veterans Memorial Corner, North Main Street and Farmington Ave on Memorial Day at 10:30 a.m. The ceremony pays tribute to late Joe Donahue, a West Hartford resident and author of Connecticut Veterans Memorial Book. The book is a result of Mr. Donahue's research, which contains brief biographies of each person from West Hartford who gave their life to our country. Legion members will read the name of the first person to die in each of the wars and then ring the bell. The program will conclude with the last person who died from West Hartford, Lawrence Philippon. Tuesday, June 1st, 8:30 a.m., West Hartford Pride Flag Raising. We will hold raise a flag. We'll have a flag raising ceremony, on Unity Green on Tuesday, June 1st. At 8:30, kickoff Pride events for the month. A proclamation will be presented. And then Saturday, June 5th, 4 to 5:15. This is an outdoor concert by West Hartford Symphony Orchestra in collaboration with West Hartford Arts and Culture Collaborative. 75-minute outdoor concert at 4 p.m. On Saturday, June 5th at the front entrance of patio of Town Hall. The rain date is Sunday, June 13th. Think of this as a Tanglewood-style event as bring your own lawn chairs or blankets. Celebrate our community with a movie, music from Jurassic Park, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Somewhere in Time by composers John Williams and John Barry. Broadway music from Les Miserables will feature tenor Steve Mitchell. There will be additional music by Henry Mancini, as well as patriotic music by John Philip Sousa, along with a concert setting of Samuel Ward's America the Beautiful. Sunday, June 6th, 3 p.m., Friendship Circle concert at the acclaimed Rogers Park Band will rock the stage live at Town Hall at 3 p.m. This is the only Hasidic folk rock band and is an award-winning indie folk band based in Chicago. I wonder if Sam knows them. The concert, open to all, will be honoring the children, teens, and young adults living with and without disability that joined together in friendship, fighting isolation, despite all odds during the pandemic year. And what a year it has been, especially for those with special needs. There will be a special highlight rejoicing with those who missed the opportunity to properly mark their bar or bat mitzvah milestones during the pandemic year. Admission is $36 for adults and $18 for children. RSVP to friendshipcirclect.com. And that is also through the Chabad of Greater Hartford. And there's a few scheduled events for Pride starts the June 1st flag raising. June 2nd is Pride Book Club. Everything is now time TBD. June 8th, Healthy Sexual at 5 p.m. with Gilead Sciences. 9th is a Pride Book Club. Everything is now time as well. 11th, Pride Night at Gastro Park, 4 to 9. Pride Hike at MDC Reservoir at 11 a.m. The 16th, Pride Book Club again, same book. 22nd, Children's Celebration Art Exhibit at West Hartford's Public Library. And the 22nd, Fighting Stigma Through Personal Action with Gilead Sciences. 23rd, Tell Me Another, the LGBTQ experience at Universalist Church at 7 p.m. 25th, the Queer Flicks at LGBTQ at Mini Film Fest. Laugh with Pride at New Park Brewing on the 25th also. 26th, Pride Festival and Drag Fest at Blueback Square, 1 to 5. And then Queer Flicks ends on the 27th. And then there's also, I did have we have Juneteenth, but the Juneteenth celebration starts with the Witness Stone Project at 10 a.m. at the North Cemetery, and then on Juneteenth will be celebrated on Saturday, June 19th and June 20th. And the performances at 12 p.m., the fun begins. The ceremony will take place at Old Center Church. Like I said, through research, education, civic engagement, the Witness Stone Project seeks to restore the history and to honor the humanity and contributions of enslaved individuals who helped build our communities. 12 p.m., the fun begins with music, games, performances, and more. Community picnic outside West Hartford Town Hall. The Doro Group will be offering a special Juneteenth-themed box lunch that is pre-ordered and picked up at Town Hall. Southern-style lunch is complete with sweet tea, 2 pieces of roasted rotisserie chicken, served cold, cornbread, creamy coleslaw, and sweet potato pie. Shake Shack will also be scooping up free custard for dessert, and local DJs Be Easy and Q Boogie will be providing the nonstop dance hits, and performers of all ages will keep us inspired and entertained throughout the afternoon. Each child will also receive a Juneteenth activity packet. Come and show off your hula hoop. I'll challenge anybody. Hula hoop and jump roping skills, and sign up for the contest at the event. And the keynote speakers will be Dr. Lorna Thomas Farquharson from our West Hartford Board of Education, and her daughter Juliana Farquharson of Sedgwick Middle School and founder of Students Against Racism. The speeches will begin with traditional African drumming ceremony performed by Alvin Carter Jr. and Friends of the World. Hartford's proud drill, drum, and dance corps will perform and get attendees on their feet, and as we make our way to Webster Walk and Blueback Square. Juneteenth art exhibition entitled The Intersection of Community, Black Joy, Freedom, History, and Education will take place June 5th through 19th at the Noah Webster Library. And the library will be giving out free commemorative Juneteenth bookmarks. At 2:30 p.m., the MLK Junior mural created by nationally renowned and local hometown artist Corey Payne, along with the help from the public, will be officially unveiled. This piece on the library building pays homage to the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King and West Hartford's past, present, and future, and takes a moment to reaffirm our belief in liberty and justice for all. West Hartford's mural is part of Connecticut Mural Rise Up Project MLK 39. Each year that MLK was alive, there's 39 murals created. Live music, speakers, special performances, impact choir, and other local artists are also featured at Blueback Square. And there will also be a fast sermon on Sunday, June 20th at the First Church of Christ Congregational. Following the service, please join us at 11:30 for official dedication of the newly renamed Unity Green to celebrate the progress of West Hartford's commitment to social justice and community. There will be guest speakers and light refreshments. And this was really a collaborative project with so many people, but Adrienne Billingsmith was the point person on this, and without her energy, motivation, and passion to get this done, and really organization to bring everybody together. So really incredible. It's going to be an incredible couple days. I just want to also say I went to an event. It was a food distribution, a new food distribution at Faxon Library today. This will be every other Tuesday, 11 to 11:30, right in the Faxon Library parking lot. And I want to thank Suzanne Oslander for her work and social services, and of course our own Jason Jakubowski from Food Share and Connecticut Food Bank for making all of this possible. There were about 50 people that were served without hardly any notice. So the need is obviously there. But there's other food pantries as well as our own food pantry distribution. But you can I'm sure we'll have these on our website. So again, thank everybody for your work to get to your work all year long, and for all you do. Let's see, is there any other comments or announcements? What are we on announcements? Any other announcements? No. Okay. With that, I think I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing no objections, we are adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Good night.